Okay, so how often should I do it? Well, we don't really know the answer, and it probably depends in part on how fit you are coming in. So if you take somebody who is relatively deconditioned, they might only be able to accommodate 30 minutes 3 times a week. And by the way, their exertion level is going to be amazingly low. So I prefer to do all of my zone 2 on a bike. And the reason for that is, on a bike you have watts. Watts are the ultimate metric of output, which is not to say you can't be just as precise when you're using a treadmill, but on an indoor bike trainer, putting my bicycle on this thing called a Wahoo kicker, I get just perfectly precise information. And I like to really think about everything in watts per kilo. So how many watts am I generating divided by my mass in kilos? And when you look at really, really unhealthy people who are metabolically very sick, they would have a zone 2 threshold, meaning they exceed that 2 millimole probably by the time they're at 1 watt per kilo of activity. Conversely, when you look at the absolute fittest of the fit, so if you look at professional cyclists who would be about as fit as any athlete could possibly be, they're actually going to be closer to about 4 watts per kilo in terms of how much work their bodies can do while still keeping lactate below 2 millimole. So personally, I do about 3 to 4 hours a week of zone 2, and for my patients, I believe that 3 hours should be the target. Understanding, of course, that most people have a job and they can't do this full time. But the reality of it is, if you look at a professional athlete during the early season in their training, they could easily be spending 20 to 24 hours a week in zone 2. Next question is, how long should I do it for? And again, this is a great question. I've asked this question and many others that are being posed today specifically to Inigo San Milan. And if you haven't listened to that podcast, I would definitely recommend it. We get very deep into the weeds on this stuff. Inigo believes that, 45 minutes is probably about the minimum per session. So in other words, if you were going to commit to 3 hours a week in 45-minute blocks, you probably wouldn't want to go any shorter versus, say doing 20-minute blocks every single day or something to that effect. In my experience is it does take a while to get into that sort of steady state. Short intervals of zone 2 don't seem to produce the same effect as long intervals. So again, it depends on your fitness, but certainly I would say, striving to have as much time as you can is reasonable. And I generally recommend people start at 30 minutes if they're new to the activity, 45 if they're not.